We thought you were going to bake the cake yourself, not buy a ready-made dessert like a lazy person, her mother-in-law remarked in front of all the guests. Irina woke up that Saturday morning with a heavy head. Outside, dawn was barely breaking, but her eyes were already open, staring at the ceiling as she mentally went over the long list of things to do. That very evening, another family dinner was planned at their place, another family gathering, another evening to organize alone. Next to her, Roman was sleeping soundly, lying on his side, breathing calmly. Irina slipped out of bed quietly so as not to wake him. As always, she started by going to the kitchen, heating up some water, and opening her notebook. Everything was noted there with precision. The dishes, the groceries, the cooking times, the order of preparation. Since their wedding, all the family celebrations had taken place at their home. At first, it had seemed natural to her. She wanted to do well, to show her in-laws that she was a caring, organized wife, worthy of their son. Then it became a habit. And finally, an unspoken rule that everyone took for granted. Around 8 o'clock, Roman came into the kitchen, yawning. He grabbed the cup of coffee Irina had already made for him and sat down across from her. "Are your parents coming tonight?" he asked, scrolling through his phone. "Yes, at 7 o'clock, Irina replied, checking her list. "Your father asked for the stew I made at New Year's." "Perfect," said Roman, finishing his coffee. "I have to go to the office for 2 or 3 hours to sign some documents. I'll be back around noon." Irina simply nodded. Of course. He always had something to do when it came to preparations. She said nothing. By now, she didn't even get upset anymore. She simply noted the facts. By 9:30, she was already at the supermarket. The cart filled up quickly. Meat for the stew, vegetables for the salads, cheese, fruit, bread, cold cuts. She moved through the aisles almost mechanically, checking her list with one eye. At the checkout, the receipt was endless. As always, she had spent a small fortune. Back home, she immediately started cooking. She turned on the oven, peeled the vegetables, prepared the salads, watched over the meat, put things away, cleaned, set the table. Her hands worked on their own while her mind was already moving on to the next step. Finish the meal, set the table, change clothes, put on a bit of makeup, look rested, even though she wasn't. Roman came home around 3 o'clock. The kitchen already smelled of roasted meat and several dishes were waiting under plastic wrap on the countertop. "It smells really good," he said, glancing into the oven. "Mom called. She asked if she should bring anything. I said everything was ready." Irina replied without looking up. "Only the cake is left." Roman took some juice out of the fridge and asked almost absent-mindedly, "Are you going to make it yourself, or should we buy one?" Irina paused for a second. The last 2 weeks had been exhausting. At work, a new project had landed on her with impossible deadlines. She was working 12-hour days one after another. Just the day before, she hadn't gotten home until 10 at night, drained, unable to do anything but collapse into bed. So today, after all that shopping, all that cleaning, all that cooking, "I'll buy one," she finally said. "The bakery on the corner makes very good ones. That'll save me some time." "All right," Roman replied with a shrug. "As long as it's good." So, around 10 to 7, Irina stopped by the bakery. She picked out a beautiful cake decorated with red berries and cream roses. It was elegant, refined, perfect for the evening. The saleswoman carefully placed it in a box, and Irina went home, feeling slightly relieved. She took a quick shower, slipped on a simple dress, and put on a bit of makeup. In the mirror, despite everything, she saw a tired woman with dark circles that even concealer could no longer really hide. At exactly 10 to 9, the doorbell rang. Roman went to open the door while Irina was adjusting the napkins on the table. "Good evening, come in," he called from the entrance. The stepfather, Viktor Sergeyevich, was the first to greet them. Then Svetlana Andreevna, Roman's mother, appeared in the kitchen doorway. As always, her gaze immediately swept over the table. She looked over the dishes, examined the plates, and inspected the salad bowls with that slightly critical air Irina knew all too well. "Good evening, Irina," her mother-in-law finally said, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Oh, how beautifully presented." "Good evening, Svetlana Andreevna. Please have a seat." The dinner began in the usual atmosphere. Svetlana Andreevna talked about the neighbors, the price of groceries, the new intercom in their building. Irina smiled politely, served the wine, brought the bread, and cleared the table as they went along. Roman ate in silence, as did his father. Then, as often happened, came the veiled remarks. "Do you remember your Olivier salad from last time, Irina?" asked the mother-in-law as she tasted another dish. "It seems to me it was a little better. Maybe you put in more carrots, is that possible?" Irina replied in a neutral tone. "My mother, on the other hand, had a little secret," continued Svetlana Andreevna with satisfaction. "A hint of mustard. Women of our generation really knew how to cook. They could do everything: cook, preserve, prepare. Nowadays, young people buy everything ready-made." Irina clenched her teeth slightly. Her remarks kept coming back again and again. Always the same comparisons, always the same insinuations. Always that way of reminding you that women from before were braver, more skillful, more deserving. As always, Roman pretended not to hear anything. "Mom, the stew is excellent," he said simply after a few moments. "Almost as good as yours." "Of course it's good," replied Svetlana Andreevna. "It's my recipe." But my mother also added wild mushrooms that she dried herself. Irina closed her eyes for a brief moment. Just a few more hours. Just a little more patience. Then it would all be over. Around 9 o'clock, the main course was finished. Irina cleared the table, wiped the tablecloth, then went to get the cake from the refrigerator. She placed it on a pretty dish and brought it into the living room. "Ah, dessert," exclaimed Viktor Sergeyevich enthusiastically. "It's been a long time since I've had a good cake." Irina began to cut it carefully. Roman took his plate. "It looks really good," he said. And it was at that moment that Svetlana Andreevna sat up in her armchair, placed her hands on her knees, and declared in a loud voice, loud enough for everyone to hear, "We thought you were going to make the cake yourself, not buy a ready-made dessert like a lazy person." Silence fell abruptly. Viktor Sergeyevich froze, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth. Roman lowered his eyes to his plate. Irina, for her part, gently set the cake knife down on the table and lifted her head. Her mother-in-law looked at her with satisfaction, as if she had just put her daughter-in-law in her place. As if this public humiliation was perfectly justified. And at that moment, something locked inside Irina. Not an explosion, not a crisis. On the contrary, a sudden clarity. All her fatigue, all the weariness she had accumulated over months, perhaps even years, suddenly took on a precise meaning. She understood with absolute clarity that she would no longer accept this. "Svetlana Andreevna," she said in a calm voice, "for 4 years I have been the one organizing all the family celebrations. Every time I devote my weekends, my time, my energy to it. I do the shopping, I cook, I set the table, I welcome everyone." Her mother-in-law opened her mouth, but Irina raised her hand slightly. "I'm not finished. These past 2 weeks, I've been working 12 hours a day. We have impossible deadlines at the office. Just yesterday, I came home at 10 o'clock at night, exhausted. Today, I got up early, did the shopping, cooked all day, and prepared this evening so that you could have a good time. I thought that what mattered wasn't whether the cake came from my kitchen or from a bakery. I thought that what counted was the fact that I organized this whole evening. But if for you, the most important thing is to know whether I did everything myself, if you see me as lazy, then fine. From today on, I won't organize any more family meals." "Oh, come on, Irina, don't take everything the wrong way," her mother-in-law protested immediately. "It was just a joke." "No," replied Irina still just as calmly. "It wasn't a joke. A joke isn't meant to humiliate someone in front of others. What you just did is public humiliation, and I no longer intend to accept it." Roman finally looked up at his wife. He seemed surprised, unsettled, maybe even a little ashamed, but he didn't speak right away. "Roman, say something to your wife," his mother exclaimed, outraged. "What is this scene all about?" This time, he finally spoke. "Mom, Irina is right. You shouldn't have said that." Svetlana Andreevna stiffened. "What? What did I say that was so terrible? I simply pointed out that in the past, women used to make their own desserts instead of buying them." "That's true, isn't it?" "What is true," Irina replied firmly, "is that I will no longer organize your family gatherings. If you want to keep meeting, that's fine. Do it at your place or at a restaurant, but not here anymore." Irina, my dear, tried to intervene Viktor Sergeyevich gently. Let's not make such a drastic decision. I'm not angry, she replied as she stood up. I've simply made a decision, and it's final. Then she left the room. She went into their bedroom, closed the door, and sat down on the edge of the bed. Her heart was beating steadily. She wasn't crying. She wasn't trembling. She didn't regret anything. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely at peace with herself. A few minutes later, she heard muffled voices in the living room. Her mother-in-law was protesting. Roman replied briefly. Then there was the sound of chairs being pushed back, footsteps in the hallway, and a door closing. Roman came into the room about 10 minutes later. They've left, he said, sitting down next to her. Very well. He remained silent for a moment, then added, Mom says you overreacted for nothing. I don't think so. Roman ran his hands over his face. Maybe you're right. Mom sometimes crosses the line with her remarks. I think I ended up not paying attention to it anymore. Irina turned toward him.